because after I read Vicious by V.E. Schwab, I was like, I'm gonna read tons of fantasy. I had gotten to thinking, I don't feel like that's right English. Let me. Hi everybody, it's Audrey and welcome back to Chapter and Converse. Today's video is gonna be all about first times, and it's gonna be about my first time with a whole bunch of super popular authors. So if you guys saw my 5-star prediction video or you saw my wintry reads video, then you heard me talk about Stephen King, who I have never read outside of his nonfiction writing book. And it got me to thinking about authors who have tons of books, some of which I have on my shelf, and I've never read a book by them. And it seems like this is as good a time as any to fix that. So here's the deal. These are all authors I am genuinely interested in. These are all books that I am genuinely interested in. But like a lot of people, I get distracted by other books that come into my life. I am a huge mood reader. I don't make TBRs. If I do make TBRs, I rarely stick to them. And I clearly just have not gotten around to reading any of these authors. And some of it I would say is a little bit of intimidation factor. Some of it I would say is not being in the right mood for it. And some of it I would say I have absolutely no excuse for. So I thought we would just hang out as a group and you guys could weigh in and let me know what you think I should read first, who you think I should read first, and we'll just take it from there. The first book I have is Patricia Highsmith's The Talented Mr. Ripley. And while I have seen the movie, I have never read the book or a Patricia Highsmith book, which is basically embarrassing as a writer aspiring to be published who writes in thrillers and mysteries and her genre. And she is like the queen of it. So the movie was so good. And I don't even know if the movie is true to the book or, you know, what has changed or any of that. But Tom is basically a complete sociopath and a fascinating character and will go to all the lengths to get what he wants. And he's come from a broken home, and I want to say, I don't know what Dickie Greenleaf's father does, but basically I want to say he's like, Tom is sent to Italy to go pick up Dickie, who is a playboy, and, you know, just having the time of his life over in Italy, and just bring him back to Manhattan. And Tom Ripley becomes basically fascinated and obsessed with Dickie and with his lifestyle, and just wants it all, and wants it all for himself. And like I said, is not letting anything get in his way. So it says, Ripley wants money, success, and the good life, and he's willing to kill for it. When his newfound happiness is threatened, his response is as swift as it is shocking. So there's a whole series of these books, which I didn't even realize that this was like an entire series. I thought it was a one-off when I originally bought this. And to pour like some salt in my wound, there's a quote on the back that says, it's hard to imagine anyone interested in modern fiction who has not read the Ripley novels. The next book I have is Colleen Hoover's Verity. And this book sounds kind of all sorts of crazy, and I've heard a lot of people talk about it. I think it definitely deviates from her more commercial books, is my understanding, and I think this is kind of like thriller. I feel like some people likened it to Sarah Pinborough, kind of Behind Her Eyes vibes, which I don't know if that's true, and I also feel like maybe it has like some major sexy time to it. I'm not totally sure, but this one is about a writer. I love books about writers. And she's not doing so well. She's struggling, basically. And she kind of gets invited to ghostwrite, I think, for this best-selling author, Verity Crawford, who something has happened to her. And she's injured, so she can't finish doing her writing. So her husband hires Lowen, our main character, to do the work for her. So Lowen does it. She doesn't want to do it at first, but she's like, I kind of need the money, so off she goes. And while she's going through Verity's notes so she can finish her book as the ghostwriter, I guess she finds an autobiography or journals where Verity seems to sort of confess some pretty dark and disturbing and maybe secrets that she doesn't want anyone else to know. So Lowen kind of debates what to do with it. At first she thinks she'll just like sort of keep it secret, but then it sounds like she kind of starts to become smitten, to put it PG, with the husband, and realizes if she shows him the works, the journals, the writing, that he might fall out of love with his wife and maybe he'll fall for Lowen. I don't really know. So it sounds like Lowen is super manipulative and maybe just a dark and messed up character doing dark and messed up things. So basically she sounds like my kind of girl. The next book I have is from Joe Nesbo, and this is The Snowman. And I will say, in full disclosure, I also have Headhunters, but I wound up picking this up because Abby from Crime by the Book said it was her favorite and like a great place to start if you want to get into Nordic noir and if you want to get started with Joe Nesbo, who is her favorite author. And I talked about this one in my Snowy Reads video also, but if you missed it or you forgot, this one is actually, it's part of a series, so it's Inspector Harry Hole, but my understanding is you can just kind of jump right in, and I'm going to. So in this one, it is a serial killer who he leaves a snowman as like his calling card after he kills somebody. He sounds like just creepy as all get out. And for this one, it's after the year's first snowfall, and this boy wakes up and finds out that his mom has disappeared and only one trace of her remains. And it's a pink scarf, his Christmas gift to her, wrapped around the snowman that appeared in their yard that day. Oh, it just sounds awful. So it also sounds completely intriguing and absolutely wonderful. I've heard nothing but great things about Joe Nesbo. Again, absolutely no explanation for why I haven't read his books, but it's freezing here. We're actually supposed to get snow tomorrow. So you guys probably will see this after all of that happens, but I'm kind of feeling like I should be reading about the snowman in the snow. So next up is Dennis Lehane, and I actually have 2 of his books. So I have Since We Fell. I also have Mystic River, but this is the one that's calling to me. And I've seen the movie Shutter Island. I haven't seen Mystic River, but I kind of know what it's about. But this one, I know it's not a book within a book, but Gillian Flint on the back says Lehane has written 2 books. 1, an insightful examination of the search for identity and belonging, and 2, a thriller that constantly leaves you guessing, and then smash them together into one terrific read. So I love book within a book as a trope, and even though this isn't that, it sounds like that, so I'm down for that. But this one, briefly on the inside, it says, after a very public mental breakdown, Rachel Childs, once a tenacious globetrotting journalist, now lives as a virtual shut-in. In all other respects, however, she enjoys an ideal life with an ideal husband, until a chance encounter on a rainy afternoon causes that ideal life to fray. As does Rachel's marriage, as does Rachel herself. Sucked into a conspiracy thick with deception, violence, and possibly madness, Rachel must find the strength within herself to conquer unimaginable fears and mind-altering truths. So I've heard nothing but amazing things about him as a writer. Again, I saw Shutter Island and I loved it. Messed up, but really, really good. And I think this is just like a great place to start. I know he does a lot of his books in and around Boston, which is like another buzzword for me. So yes, I've had this for a long time. No excuses. The next book I have is Kate Atkinson's Case Histories, and this is the first in the Jackson Brodie series, and I'm still mad about the fact that when this came, it's bent. So annoying. But anyway, not the reason I didn't read it. But this is, I think, like cold cases. So there's 3 different cases that take place, and the first one was 30 years ago, and Brodie starts to investigate them, and apparently he starts to just see the links between them, and something emerges from all of them. There's not really any description on this book, but I've heard great things about this series. I know there was, I think, like a BBC show that was made about it. It used to be available online and it's not anymore. But I hear great things about Kate Atkinson as a writer. I also have Life After Life, but the thriller mystery lover in me is so drawn to this one as the first book I read by her. So I only have the first book in this series, so at least I've had some moderate self-control when it comes to that part of things. But I love the idea of mysteries in the past and the present. I'm guessing maybe it's cold cases, and I don't know why they connect. It's totally fine. I'm happy to go in kind of blind. But it's a detective, investigative. I was listening to a podcast recently. Don't ask me which one. I will find it and I will link it in the show notes down below. The show notes, that's such a podcast thing. My video box down below. And they were talking about just how great this series is. And I was like, I have that. So it's sort of like, you know, like you put something out into the universe and you start hearing callings from all over the place. So I'm feeling called to this book. Kate Atkinson, you guys let me know. So the next author I have is Nikki French, and this is Blue Monday. I also have The Lying Room, I want to say it's called, which I got as an ARC at Thriller Fest 2 years ago, because we couldn't do Thriller Fest in 2020. And I was like, I've never heard of this author before. And somebody like wrote in the comments, like, basically like, duh, they have tons of books. And I believe this is like a husband and wife writing team together as well. So I'm so out of it sometimes, you guys. But this in particular series, which is the Frida Klein series, came to me, if you will, from April at Getting Hygge With It. And she discovered this through somebody else and devoured this series also. And I've gotten so many great recommendations from April. So when she talked about it and she talked about how it was like a compulsive read of a series, I was like, I need to get on this train as well. So I picked up the book and then I promptly put it on my shelf and didn't read it. So in this one, Frida is a psychotherapist and an insomniac who believes the world is a messy, uncontrollable place. So she has a client, a patient who comes to her and he is desperate for a child. So it says haunted by dreams in which he hungers for a child. He's desperate, but would he steal one? Because then a boy kind of, I guess it sounds like the boy this man described, goes missing or is abducted. She can't ignore the fact that he might be responsible for it. So it's like her patient might be involved. It sounds like she gets involved with the police and tries to help find the kidnapper. And then apparently she's got all sorts of problems of her own that we need to unpack as well. So this sounds super multi-layered. It sounds like a fast read. Again, I trust April implicitly when it comes to thriller recommendations. So I am all down for a fast-paced read at all times. And it says it draws readers into a troubled world in which the terrors of the mind spill over into real life. I mean, it just sounds amazing, right? And then the last author I have 3 books by this author. Because after I read Vicious by V.E. Schwab, I was like, I'm gonna read tons of fantasy. I love fantasy. Why am I not reading fantasy? So I bought this. I bought Six of Crows, the duology, Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. And you know why I bought this? I mean, not only did I buy this because I was like, I'm gonna be a fantasy girl. How cool are these, right? Like I was like, let me just have books on my shelf that are pretty. This is probably the second time I've taken them out of this little thing, because of course I took them out when they came to make sure they were pretty, and then they went and lived on my shelf. And then I went and did a whole bunch of other things. I don't even know what these are about, other than that people love them. That's basically what I know. And from a writer hat on standpoint, I've listened to tons of Leigh Bardugo podcasts and interviews, and I find her fascinating, and I love hearing about her writing process. And then we fast forward, and then she buzzworded me up big time with some dark academia, secret history, and I picked up Ninth House, which I also haven't read. And this is kind of calling me a little bit more than this as a first time place to try. So this is kind of like modern day Yale, but dark secret society. Like I haven't even like opened this. It like made that first noise. Like I haven't even opened this. So this is her adult debut. We've got Yale, but it's not the Yale as we know and love it, so to speak. So it sounds like she gets involved in some secret societies. There's some dark stuff going on there. There are 8 windowless tombs. And there's just all sorts of crazy stuff going on. And this is one of those books where I feel like it's a love-hate thing. I haven't read Leigh Bardugo yet, so I have no expectations for her books. And I think there's a lot of people who are like loving this kind of thing, and this just didn't work for them. But I also feel like, having listened to a podcast with V.E. Schwab about Addie LaRue, she was concerned, you know, when she was writing it, that it's a real deviation for her. And there's a lot of people, which I haven't read Addie yet, but it's on my 5-star list, not to tangent, but it's me, so we're tangenting. And she was like, you know, my concern is that people expect a certain kind of book from me and this one's gonna be different. And the big criticism, if you will, about Addie that I've heard is everyone's like, it's really slow paced. So it's not like a fast paced fantasy like the rest of her books are, which I'm okay with that. And it sounds like this might be slower as well, or maybe it just didn't work for people. I don't know. But I do love dark academia and secret societies and like all that good stuff. I don't know. So let me know, you guys. I mean, I own these books. I need to be reading them. It's just a matter of which one comes first. But if you were me, going in dark, where would you go? So what do you guys think of the authors that I've never ever read before? Where should I start? Let me know if you have read any of these books, any of these authors, what you think I might like, where you would recommend that I give a go to. And I will take your recommendation and then I will let you know how it goes. So thank you guys for watching. Thanks for hanging out today. I hope everyone's doing great and I will see you in the next video. Bye everybody.